quite sure why they ever give me a mic, but here they do. So I will ask you to have grace and just understand that everything that comes from me is absolutely from the heart. So I was a police officer in Oakland for 18 years, got retired, injured, retired, and wasn't done working. I felt like I still had purpose. And so for some reason, Shannon decided to hire me as a victim advocate, and it literally was the best thing that ever happened to me. getVocal came to be from one of our cases that we had. I met an incredible family. The cases that I do mostly are homicides, and this family comes in and they are broken, and they are sad, and they are looking for help. They are looking for answers. They're looking for something to make sense. And I've been in the criminal justice system for probably 20 years at that time. And I thought I knew what we were doing. I thought I knew what I was talking about. And so as I'm talking to this family, I'm giving them ideas of what it's gonna look like, how it's gonna move, how the system is going to work. Because it normally works for them. And then there were decisions made in Sacramento. Decisions made by people who don't have to live with the decisions that they make. The decisions made for people who won't go into the neighborhoods they claim they want to protect. Decisions were made. And because of those decisions, we had to look at this family. And we had to tell this family that the DA's office, who I tell, like, we are on your side. Yes, we're there. It's for the state, but it's really for you. Not so much anymore. When the state has a decision that's different from the family's decision, from the family's desires, there's nowhere to go. Marcy's Law says that you have a voice. You have a right to sit in court and have your voice heard, but if you're sitting in a trial, you can't speak up. We tell families, don't breathe too loudly or they'll make you leave. You have to be quiet. Try to hold on to that. We tell them that they can't even express sorrow in a way that makes sense to them because we don't want to ruin our case. And so I'm sitting there with the family that these decisions are coming fast and furious and it's not fair and they don't understand and they don't like it and they're screaming for help. And we're looking for attorneys. And as an outsider, because it's not really my story to tell, but as an outsider, I'm watching them, calling people, making lists, pulling out credit cards. How can we pay for this? If we just get somebody that will listen to us, we can put this on this card and we can do this, and there was nothing. We finally got an attorney that said, okay, well, I can help you, but not for a couple of weeks. So this is what we need you to say. We need you to write this down. So we're sitting in a lobby, in a hallway, with pads of paper, trying to write down legal words that make sense. And guess what? They don't make sense. Because we are not lawyers. So we're scrambling and we're doing it. We get in court, and when it's time, we forget the words. And this young lady stands up and she just says, I need a lawyer. And nobody heard her. They closed the case. The DA that was on the case refused to take it. Somebody else had to come in, and it was done. And their voices were not heard. That tore me apart and said, I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't get into this to hurt people. But then I go into offices of people like Mary and Allison and Shannon, and we don't give up. We think of solutions. And that is what gave birth to getVocal. And then in the meantime, I came to you in 2020 and we had this great launch, and then COVID happened. But guess what? We didn't stop doing the work. We have lawyers that have stood in court to advocate for parents whose children were molested and they were trying to let them out of jail early. We had attorneys that met with those families. We had attorneys that met with homicide victims. This lady wears her grief, it glistens on her skin. You can see how heavy her grief is because her only child was murdered by somebody who'd already killed 2 people. But he got out because that's what we do. And we're looking at her, and I'm trying to explain this to her, but guess who calls her? She can't get up. She sleeps in her son's room for 36 hours until the day she can get up and go to work. She told me I'm back to work now. I only go 3 days a week, but I'm back to work. And she described that to me. Getting up, going to a closet where none of her clothes fit anymore. Putting on makeup so that people on the outside think she's okay when she's really not. She leaves work to go to her son's grave where she communes with him for a few hours, goes home, drops those same clothes that are too big on her, and she climbs in her son's bed, and that is where she stays for 36 hours until she tries to do it again. But she said, Beverly, I want to thank you for getting me in touch with my lawyer. My getVocal lawyer who answers my questions. She answers the phone. She calls me back. She cares about me. That is what we're doing. On a shoestring budget, we're applying and we're trying to get money, but victim services is not what we want to spend money on in California anymore. Don't ask me how I know that, but that's not what we're doing. But we're still doing the work. We've met with other families who the DA wouldn't even take a meeting with. And our getVocal lawyers are like, we got you. Not only will we have a meeting, we're gonna sit there with you and we're gonna make sure that your voice is heard. This year's Victims' Rights Week is Survivors' Voices, and we wanna elevate and we wanna embrace change. But at every single turn, we are closing down their voices. We're not giving them a way to have a true voice. Nobody is listening. A lot of things that we're doing in criminal justice right now is we're reimagining a lot of things, right? We want to reimagine because it sounds good on paper. But in order to reimagine, you must first have to imagine. And how do you imagine the unimaginable? How do you imagine having to bury your only child who just went to the store for some cheesy bread? How do you imagine standing there looking in the face of your 5 and 6 and 7-year-old and telling them that the monster that we promised was going to stay in jail is not there anymore? We can't imagine that because you don't know until it happens to you. So we don't have to reimagine what it feels like to be a victim. We just need to listen. Hear what they're saying, even if it's just a whisper. Because sometimes grief is so heavy that you don't have the words. But they're telling you, they're telling all of us. And they're just asking us to listen. So I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for supporting our little project. Because we know that we're listening. We know that we're looking at victims' faces every single day. And as long as I can stand up, and as long as I can talk, because I can talk enough for everybody. You can hear our voice, and we will make sure that their voices are heard. Thank you so much. I just appreciate you.